Your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man Season 1 is out in full on Disney+, a new animated show adjacent to the MCU. 10 episodes around half hour each. This is a bit confusing in terms of the continuity because originally it was supposed to take place in the MCU and tell the backstory of Peter Parker, as played by Tom Holland, between getting bitten by the radioactive spider and getting his superpowers and meeting Tony Stark in Civil War. So essentially just him dealing with low-level crime in New York as he attends high school. But then as it was being developed, the creators decided to divorce it from the MCU because it was too limiting in terms of the storylines and characters that they could use. So it is an alternate universe, but very cleverly similar. The Avengers do exist here. Some of the same events happened, but some of the characters have these wonderful twists to them. Most notably, that the first episode, or was it the second? I think it was the first, ends with the same scene from Homecoming of Peter walking home to the same music playing, the same shots, and in the apartment talking to Aunt May is his future mentor, the businessman and visionary Norman Osborn, replacing, of course, Tony Stark. So it's a great twist where, at least initially, not to spoil anything, Osborn is a very involved mentor figure working together with Spider-Man instead of fighting him as the supervillain Green Goblin that we know from the comics. What Spider-Man himself has to deal with, as tradition goes, is balancing the life of crime fighting with being a high school teenager. In this version, he's friends with Nico Minoru, a character from Runaways, and a new character called Lonnie. But I think enough about the plot. It's a joy to discover it yourself. What you need to know is this is a fresh, modern take on Spider-Man's origin story and early days as a superhero. Now, I will admit, given the recent output from the MCU, I was pessimistic about this show. I wasn't totally interested in it. I was annoyed that it would be yet another alt universe instead of the main continuity, meaning why would I care about anything that happens? And I wasn't sold on the animation style from the trailers. But I have to admit, the show quickly won me over, and about 2 episodes in, I was fully bought into it. I enjoyed it through the end, and I can't wait for the next seasons. Maybe I'll start with the animation style, which is very unique because it tries to emulate comic book panels, albeit in different ways than, for instance, the Spider-Verse movies. As a result, it initially seems a bit clunky and the character designs are weird and you sort of have to get used to it. But once you do, it works pretty great. The animation is actually really fluid in action and feels less clunky than some of the slower scenes. I also ended up liking the character designs in the end. In terms of the writing, I think it's fantastic. It manages to hit that sweet spot of doing something new and fresh and unexpected with Spider-Man, while staying very true to the heart of the character and what's it all about. I think this might become the staple entry point to Spider-Man mythos for new audiences from younger generations. It does a great job of balancing humor and seriousness, has just the right stakes, great character arcs throughout the season, satisfying action sequences, and loads of patience in 2 ways. One, there are numerous longer and slower conversation scenes where I thought to myself, well, live action Marvel would already break it up with some action or humor. They wouldn't trust the audience to sit through this. But these scenes are allowed to play out. And as a result, the characters and the story have room to breathe and to fully develop, which is what you need in a TV show. And I love that. But secondly, the patience is here in the sense of not rushing through the storylines and slowly setting things up for next seasons. We, of course, get the setup of Norman's potential eventual turn into a villain. We have the very beginning of Lonnie's story. We have these small teases of Nico Minoru's secret powers. We have Doc Ock making an appearance but not yet becoming a major player. We have Doc Connors show up in an even smaller capacity. And all these things can pay off later in massive ways, and I'm glad the show didn't fire all these guns in the first season, leaving something for later. And crucially, with how it went so far, some of those guns might not even fire at all, or fire in different ways than we would expect, because the show is doing its own thing in some aspects, and it's not totally beholden to the established lore, changing things where it wants and where it makes sense, and as a result making it difficult to predict what exactly will happen. So I loved it. I gotta say I'm very positively surprised. As much as recent live action Marvel has been disappointing, They seem to get it right on the animation front between this and X-Men, and I can't wait to see more of it.